My granddad used to say, success is like an iceberg. Most people only see the tip, never realizing how massive it really is underneath. I didn't fully grasp what he meant until I became that iceberg myself. My name's Jenna Castillo, and this is the story of how I went from being the odd one out in my sister's glittery, picture-perfect world, to watching that flawless facade of hers crack wide open. Right in front of everyone. I grew up above our family's Mexican panaderia in a walk-up apartment in San Antonio's west side. Before I even turned 10, I knew what it meant to earn your keep. By 9, I was folding pastry boxes and rattling off our regulars' orders by heart. By 13, I was managing the supply sheet and catching math mistakes my uncle somehow missed. Números, my abuelo would call out, holding a sticky note in the air. I'd come running, ready to dive in. We're overspending on mango jam, I'd point out. But if we bulk order with the cafe on Castro Street, he'd just laugh and tap my forehead. You've got a business brain hiding in that little head. He was convinced I was going to do something big. While kids my age were out riding bikes, I was buried in spreadsheets and reading about startup scaling, and why parents worked brutal hours, sunrise to well past midnight, just to send me to a private high school and then later to Columbia on a scholarship. I owed them more than just straight A's. At 23, I built a data-driven microloan platform that started gaining momentum in immigrant neighborhoods. By 28, that little spark turned into a full-blown multi-million-dollar business, Arborize Capital. Still, I kept a low profile. That's when I met Chris at IT happened at this dusty used bookstore tucked away on Jefferson Street. I was wearing worn-out leggings and a hoodie from college, scrolling through finance blogs on my tablet, when he accidentally knocked over a whole stack of books. "Oh man, I'm so sorry," he said, bending to help. "No worries," I laughed. "I'm Jenna Castillo. Let me buy you a café de olla to make up for it." That cup of coffee led to lunch. Then lunch led to everything else. Chris wasn't some tech guy or Wall Street climber. He taught middle school civics, compassionate, grounded, and all about giving people a fair shot. He actually cared. 6 months later, he proposed, and I said yes without blinking. My family was overjoyed. Well, everyone except my sister, Bianca, and I. Let's just say we took completely different exits off life's freeway. She went full corporate, MBA, high heels, designer blazers, and the whole hustle. As the marketing director at Levitt and Monroe, one of the biggest investment firms in Austin, she thrived on power suits and prestige. And while she'd say she loved me as her little sister, she never exactly treated me like a peer. Like the night we were all having dinner at our parents' house in South Congress, and she swirled her wine glass like she was judging a sommelier contest. "So, still running the bakery and that cute little app of yours?" I could have told her that cute little app had just locked in a multi-year contract with one of the biggest private equity firms in the Southwest, but I didn't. Part of me liked the quiet satisfaction of letting her underestimate me. "I'm still involved in both." "Yeah," I said, sipping my coffee. "Well," she smirked, "someone's gotta keep the conscious coming." "Not everyone can land a C-suite track position," her friend Armin chimed in with her usual syrupy voice. "Bianca just landed a major campaign for Levitt and Monroe. The CEO even sent her a personal thank you." What none of them knew was that Levitt and Monroe had been licensing software tools from my company for over a year, and we were currently in contract expansion talks. "That's great," I said honestly. Bianca smiled, totally thinking she'd won some imaginary battle. Months rolled on like that, her little digs at family events, and Chris always nudging me to just let them slide. Then came the big announcement. Bianca was throwing a gala to celebrate her promotion to senior director. At the planning dinner, she turned to me with a smile as sharp as a blade. "Jenna, since you've worked in events and food before, think you could manage the catering crew for the night?" Bianca asked, all fake sweet and strategic. Mom clapped her hands like it was the best idea she'd ever heard. "Perfect. Jenna runs a company. She knows logistics like the back of her hand." I looked straight at Bianca's smug little grin and gave her my warmest smile. "Sure thing. I'd love to help. Later that night, Chris pulled me aside. He had that look on his face, the one that shows up when he's worried I'm swallowing too much just to keep the peace. You don't have to do this, he murmured. We could make up something, say you're sick or had a last-minute crisis at work. But my brain was already working the angles. I told him, steady and calm. This night's important to Bianca. It should go off without a hitch. What nobody else at that dinner table knew was that earlier that morning, I'd gotten an unexpected email. The CEO of Levitt and Monroe, yes, Bianca's firm, wanted to meet the low-profile founder of Arborize Capital. That would be me. Apparently, he was attending the gala tonight. Suddenly, everything clicked. For the first time since Bianca had started her little campaign of digs and dismissals, I smiled, not politely, not to keep the peace, but because I was looking forward to what was coming. Bianca had no clue that this party she'd poured so much time and ego into was about to become more than a celebration of her promotion. Sometimes, the best form of justice isn't revenge, it's letting the truth show up with a spotlight. And tonight promised a brilliant one. The Whitfield place had been transformed into some strange mix between an upscale art gallery and a corporate launch. Doreen from my mom's book club called it tasteful and refined. Personally, I thought it looked like Pinterest had a fling with Bloomberg. Crystal glasses at every table, melting ice sculptures trying to survive the Texas heat, and a harpist perched near the koi pond out back. I couldn't help but wonder if the event budget had outpaced Bianca's actual raise. Jenna, she called, sweeping into the room like royalty in her gold silk gown. The caterers are waiting. Please try to keep them organized. Her eyes slid down to my plain black dress. And maybe stay in the background? I gave her a nod. Of course, Bianca. Everything will run like clockwork. Chris leaned in, squeezed my hand gently. We can go if you want. I shook my head. Not a chance. Everything's right on track. Back in the kitchen, the catering crew was swamped. Surprise, surprise, Bianca had changed the timeline again. Ms. Castillo? A nervous young server asked. Your sister wants the champagne served at exactly 8:15 for her speech, but also wants trays floating constantly, and we're short 2 people. I gave her a reassuring smile. Hey, no worries. I've handled worse during summer rush at a bakery with a broken AC. We've got this. If you've ever been belittled by someone who should have had your back, you'll want to stick around because what happened next didn't just shift the mood, it changed the whole game. Quiet power makes the loudest impact when it's timed just right. For the next hour, I worked elbow to elbow with the crew, coordinating timing, checking plating, keeping the champagne flowing like clockwork. But I wasn't just managing logistics, I was watching the guest list. Every time someone new walked in, I made a mental note. Bianca drifted from group to group, sipping way too much Prosecco, laughing a little too loudly at her coworkers' not-so-funny jokes. I overheard her giggling to a circle of men in suits. Did you see Jenna? My sister's helping with the catering team. Honestly, it's where she feels most comfortable. Poor thing. There was a ripple of polite chuckles. Then she added, like she was reading a line in a play, some people just aren't cut out for this world. Our mom, Rosa, added in her signature sugar-sweet voice, we've always done what we could to include her, of course. But, well, with her background, there's only so much we can do. I passed another tray of appetizers, staying invisible, watching as Levitt and Monroe execs started to show up one by one. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO, all signed. Everything's ready. We're greenlit. I couldn't help but smile. Right on cue, Bianca, flushed with attention and wine, was entertaining another group. When Chris first introduced me to his girlfriend, my sister, I honestly thought he was kidding. A baker/app tinkerer? Please. But Mom always says charity begins at home. Rosa chimed in again. We're even thinking about helping her with a small condo. Nothing fancy. Definitely not in Westlake. But, manageable. And then the room shifted. There was a little murmur near the front doors. People turned. Someone whispered, Then Bianca nearly toppled off her heels, trying to greet the man who had just walked in. "Mr. Monroe, we're so honored to have you here," she beamed. Wearing a custom-cut navy suit, he looked around the room, scanning faces. His eyes landed on me, and something flickered. Bianca gave a strained laugh. "Oh, don't worry about her. That's just my sister Jenna. She's helping with the food tonight. Now let me show you the marketing deck I prepared." "Actually," he interrupted, still looking straight at me, "isn't that?" I passed my tray to a nearby server and stepped forward. "Jenna, please," Bianca hissed through clenched teeth. "Mr. Monroe doesn't need a drink. Just go back to the kitchen where—" "Good evening, James," I said evenly, cutting her off without looking at her. "I appreciate you coming tonight." His face brightened like he'd just seen an old friend. "Miss Castillo, I didn't expect to find you playing waitress at your own celebration." Bianca started, her voice tight and rising. "Well, yes," James continued smoothly, completely ignoring her. "Considering Arborize Capital just secured majority ownership of Levitt and Monroe, I assumed tonight's gathering was to announce the merger." He turned toward me, his smile tight but knowing. "Unless you were planning to keep that under wraps a little longer?" The entire room went still. Even the string quartet trailed off mid-measure. You could hear the soft clink of ice in untouched drinks. Bianca's glass of Prosecco slipped from her hand and exploded against the marble floor. "There has to be some mistake," she stammered. "Jenna, she bakes. She runs that tiny place in Eastwood." James let out a soft laugh. "Ms. Castillo is the founder and CEO of Arborize Capital. As of this morning, she owns 51% of my firm, which includes your department." Then he turned back to me, eyes lit up with something close to admiration. "Those algorithmic revisions you suggested? Our tech team couldn't shut up about them. Just brilliant." Across the room, my mom Rosa clutched the back of a chair, pale as a ghost. "No, that Jenna doesn't. She couldn't be." "Oh, but I am," I said quietly, though in the stunned hush, it echoed like a cannon. "Arborize has been mine from the beginning," I added, "and as of 10 minutes ago, we officially hold controlling interest in Levitt and Monroe." I turned to Bianca, making sure she caught every word. "Including your division in marketing." Her face drained of color. Her mouth opened once, then again, but nothing came out. "For every time you made me feel like I didn't belong," I continued, "for every backhanded comment, every eye roll, every time you made me feel lucky just to be in the same room." That's when Chris made his way through the frozen crowd, wide-eyed. "Jenna, why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything?" I asked softly. "Would you have stood up for me if you'd known I had money? Because you sure didn't when you thought I didn't." He stood there, stunned into silence. James cleared his throat. "Well, seeing as everyone's here, shall we make it official? Arborize Capital is now the new majority stakeholder in Levitt and Monroe." "Gladly," I replied, then turned toward Bianca, a smile tugging at my lips. "I believe you had a speech prepared for tonight. Still want to give it? Or would you like me to take it from here?" Bianca's jaw trembled. Then she spun on her heels and bolted from the room, Rosa trailing behind her like a shadow. I picked up a glass of champagne from a nearby tray and tapped it lightly. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, stepping into the space she'd just abandoned. "May I have your attention?" What happened in the minutes that followed would ripple through our family for years to come, and we were just getting started. Chris had drifted toward the back, his expression blank. Rosa was nowhere in sight, probably comforting Bianca. And my dad, Raphael, who usually stayed quiet at family gatherings, stood by the bar, staring into his empty glass like it might offer answers. After the formal announcement, James found me near the garden. "Well," he said with a grin, "that was one of the most unforgettable corporate reveals I've ever witnessed." He paused, then added, "But I've got to ask, why let everyone think you were just a bakery owner all this time?" I took a slow sip of champagne. "Because people tell you who they really are when they think you're beneath them." He gave a low chuckle. "Well, their mistake is our opportunity. I'm looking forward to actually working together now." As the crowd started to thin, Bianca returned. Her face was scrubbed clean, makeup hastily patched, pride barely intact. She marched up to me like a woman walking into court. "You humiliated me," she hissed. "In front of every major connection I've built." "No," I replied, calm and clear. "You humiliated yourself. I just didn't stop you." "I'll resign," she snapped. "I'm not going to work under you." "That's your choice," I said. "But before you walk away, you should know every firm in Miami knows what happened here tonight. The way you spoke about me, about people like me, and in front of your own CEO, that won't be forgotten." Her shoulders dipped ever so slightly. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "I want you to learn," I said. "Starting Monday, you'll report to our community engagement division." "We're launching a new initiative," I said, keeping my tone even. "Want to support local food businesses and independent shops with better financial tools." She blinked. "Reporting to who?" "To my mother," I said, smiling. "She still runs the family cafe, by choice, not necessity. She'll be heading the program." Bianca opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then, like clockwork, Rosa stepped in behind her. "Jenna," she said, voice trembling, "can we please talk about this privately? We're family, after all." I turned to face her fully. "Family?" I asked. "You made me sit with the catering staff for years. Cropped me out of photos. Spoke about me like I was some charity case. When exactly did I become part of the family?" "We didn't know," she whispered. "We didn't know you had money. And that right there was the problem. You didn't respect me because you thought I had nothing," I said. "That's the difference." That's when Raphael, my father, finally stepped forward and set his empty glass on the bar. The room fell still again, all eyes on him. "She's right," he said quietly, but clearly. "We've treated her terribly." Then he looked straight at Rosa. "We've let our values rot into pride, appearances, and judgment. And I stood by and let it happen." He turned to me, his voice softer. "Maybe it took this moment to shake us out of it. By then, the room had mostly emptied. Just us family, if you could still call it that, and the broken remains of every assumption they'd ever made." Chris took a few hesitant steps forward. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "I wanted to," I said. "More times than I can count. But every time you said nothing while your family mocked me, it became crystal clear." I looked him in the eyes. "If you couldn't respect me as a cafe owner, you didn't deserve to know me as a CEO." "I love you," he said, desperation thick in his voice. "Love without respect?" I shook my head. "That's not love that lasts, Chris. Every time you stood silent while I was humiliated, you showed me exactly what we were." "I can change," he said. "Now that I understand." "But do you understand?" I asked quietly. "Or are you just adjusting because I'm rich?" He didn't answer. So I reached into my pocket and took off my wedding ring. I set it gently on the marble tabletop. "I filed last week," I said. "You'll be hearing from my attorney." "Jenna, please," I turned to Bianca. "I've got a meeting with the Levitt and Monroe board first thing tomorrow." Then I smiled. "But you?" "You'll be at the bakery on Monday morning, reporting to my mother. And she doesn't tolerate lateness." I glanced back at Rosa. "The estate looks beautiful tonight. You should enjoy it while you can." Her eyes narrowed. I gave her the final blow gently. "The bank signed off on my bid this morning. This home now belongs to the Castillo Foundation for Equity. It'll be our new HQ, a nonprofit training and empowering service workers across Florida." Their stunned silence said everything. I didn't wait for a reply. Outside, the breeze was warm and familiar as my phone buzzed, coming by the cafe. "Your dad made your favorite." I smiled. Be there in 20 minutes later, there I was, back where it all started. Sitting in my parents' little cafe, eating homemade empanadas and laughing about the chaos we'd just walked through. "People like that," my mom said, shaking her head, "they need to learn the hard way." "Success without humility," my dad added, "is like sugar without yeast. Might look sweet, but it never rises." Later, as I helped wipe down tables, yes, even CEOs clean up, I thought about how far I'd come. That little girl counting quarters at the register, now running billion-dollar deals. But my real wealth? It's always been respect, integrity, and the strength to know my own value. And if any part of this story echoes your own, if you've been overlooked, underestimated, or told you weren't enough, I'd love to hear from you. Drop your story in the comments. Let's build something real here, a place where quiet power is honored, and if you believe respect matters more than status, that humility is the only kind of success that means anything, stick around. I built my empire brick by brick. But it started with one thing, knowing my worth. To my advice, don't ever let anyone else define your value. Keep building even when no one's watching, especially then, because that's when character, not just success, is truly made.